Stand by. Contact.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. We got a good session coming up with QRF-Up with Mark and Miguel. Gentlemen, I appreciate you calling in and taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you got doing bigger and better things for service members, past or present. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mark, and then Miguel, and then we'll get into some meat and potatoes.
Yeah, hey everybody, how y'all doing? My name is Mark Messina. So just basic on me. So I was in the Army for about 15 years. I just recently was medically retired back in September this year, so I'm still pretty fresh out. As I began through my transition, I figured and found my place in the entrepreneurial world, and now I'm running a pretty large-scale corporation. And that's when I ran in and found QRF-Up. And that's kind of what brings us all here today, is helping vets and figuring out how to be better within our own community.
Right on. Miguel, Vasquez, Marine Corps vet, was in long enough for them to get their money's worth. But it is one of those things where as soon as I got out, I ended up putting myself in the position of being able to always find a way to take care of vets. I think that mentality from combat of being able to obviously take care of those on your left and right transcended into the civilian world. And ultimately, I found myself in a situation where we essentially birthed an innovative way to be able to help with crisis response for veterans and active duty service members to help save lives. And that's what QRF-Up's all about. So that's how I got here. And I'm really happy to be part of it on the innovative end on how we're doing things different to really change the way we save veteran lives.
Gentlemen, God darn. That's an amazing introduction, Miguel. Holy Mark, you better pick your game up with just a tad bit, right?
Yeah, man, I'll always take the cake with it.
Miguel was prepared. Holy mackerel with this. I feel like you're a natural. My goodness, I got to step my game up as well. QRF-Up, gentlemen. This is it's a great, as I was in a Teams meeting with you guys a couple weeks back, and you guys presented me with an opportunity that that I'm interested in terms of helping service members, past or present. That's what it's all about, man. The brotherhood and sisterhood. We gotta stay. While you're in uniform, it's easy to be connected. It's easy to be around others, but as soon as you transition out, it's that's where the rubber meets the road, and whether or not you're prepared or not. So we got to get into what QRF-Up is, and in the weeds in terms of what's going on there. Gentlemen, how did QRF start? I know you gave a quick background, Miguel, but where did it come from? Where did the name come from, and who was the catalyst to start this program?
The way that this came to be in the inception of it was motivated truly from three different areas. Number one, past combat deployment. Being part of 5th Marines, myself and Ramses Shebra, we're from different battalions that hated each other for some reason, but found ourselves on the same type of battlefields, and we knew the power of what a quick reaction force could do when you were really caught up in heavy contact. The second thing was, on returning home, what we started to realize is the war had just begun for us. Combat almost seemed like it was a much easier way of living, but coming back home and transitioning into the from the service to the civilian world was something that was kicking a lot of guys in the ass. And we started to see, unfortunately, a lot of them take their own lives. And ultimately, the third part of where the inception was motivated from was essentially Ram and I on the phone, working out some problems. He found himself in a situation where he was going down a path so many of our brothers had gone, but he got out of it, and we got out of it together. And being able to kind of see the power that went with being able to have each other's back the same way we would if we were on patrol was one side of being able to actually solidify that trust, but being able to give that hope, being that light from the darkness, that's essentially where we started to think, okay, how do we do this on a grander scale? How do we do this in an innovative way to be able to get technologically up to speed where veterans can essentially have access to a tool that they can use in real time and connect with peers that can help them out of these dark moments? being able to actually have something that just went beyond the phone call, beyond the text message, beyond an email, really helped personalize, ensuring that we could help each other through those moments and not be able to cop out and say, oh, somebody didn't pick up their phone. Oh, they didn't reply to my text message, or, find a way to kind of just, find a way out. So that's essentially how it was birthed to become. And, as we've continued with this concept, it's turned into, it went from program with the Veterans Activists to now its own nonprofit organization, because we started to see the scalability of not only what this could do, but more specifically how it was going to be done. And we wanted to ensure that, we gave this technology, we gave this avenue of assistance its proper place in the nonprofit space.
That's powerful. And I tell you what, just like I said a second ago, transition is part of that rubber meets the road type of a mindset, right? The war, Marines, I think I think there's a number I read the other day, from the inception of the war, Afghanistan and Iraq combined, we have less deaths total in the last 20 years than whoever drives on the I-5 in California. There's like 10 times more deaths on the 5 in California than there is in war in the last 20 years, which was wild to me to think. But that's just like by war, right? I can't imagine the statistics on suicide. Mark, I got to ask, how did you and Miguel meet in terms of QRF-Up?
Yeah, man. So I've only been with QRF-Up now for about the past 3 months. And originally how we met was I had a affiliate marketing team that reached out to me that works for my company. And they're like, hey, you should really talk to this organization. They're talking about a lot of the same things you are and different things that I was setting up with a nonprofit under my company. And so I'm like, okay. So we ended up doing a discovery call. And I don't know, I guess about halfway through it, I was accepting a seat in the board. So I don't know if it was one of those of like, I just want certain entities to do their jobs or what, right? Like we won't call them out by name, but sometimes it takes 7 to 9 months to get an appointment to go see things and go do certain stuff on, once you're actually out, man. And I felt that because I had just gone through it. And, at that point too, I opened up with the team and with the group, and I'm like, hey, look, guys, like I take this very seriously, and I was skeptical at first as well too. They told me what they were doing and where it was, and I kind of had that breaking point as well, because at this point, you know what I mean? Like I've had 39 of my friends commit suicide, right? And I'm not talking about like, oh, these dudes were in my unit, they were in an organization I was in. No, like I knew their wives, I knew their kids, I knew their families. We'd been to barbecues together. We knew each other. We were friends. And during that transition period and me having to go through my own mental health journey and figure those different things out as I was getting through my lost history graph and all that stuff to figure who I was outside of the military again and work through that, I was able to find a home in QRF-Up, and we just started running with it, right? So I started out, I just wanted to put on a fundraiser for them. We were going to do a range day event. And now we're running it down, and we're getting national sponsorship and getting that app out nationwide here within the next few months. So it's been an honor to kind of get pulled in and figure out where we are and what that looks like. And, being able to knock out some of the strategic level planning on that and driving it home across the country.
Wow, that is wild. So you touched about a little bit about it, Mark and Miguel. I got to ask, what made you what made you transition? Now, did you retire? Did you get medically retired, or just drop papers and now it kind of was it? And hit that piece real quick before I get the next question, Miguel.
So I'll say from my end of things, it was really one of those decisions that was one of the hardest decisions to make. And I think the reason for it is because I'm a Marine Corps brat. I was born in the Corps. My mom did 22 years. She retired as a gunny. Old man did 30, got out as a CW05. These were lifers. I came from lifers, and I intended to do just the same. But with the increase of deployments, especially being in a Victor unit and the means of what that was doing to the gunny back home, The old man kind of just said, hey, listen, if you're going to consider staying in the Corps, try to do something stateside, and that just wasn't in my DNA. After going over with 2 deployments with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, I realized that there was nothing else that I could do in the Corps except be overseas, and being able to not do that was just not me. So I ended up getting out, became an investment advisor, kind of started using some of the skills I used overseas to, instead of saving lives, to help people save and invest money. And ultimately, put myself in a position to pursue a lot of the things that I'd actually planned while overseas. So many people think sometimes just because you have a kinetic deployment that you're out there running and gunning every day. But the reality of it is, it's just like jail. You got a lot of time on your hands. You can just sit around and think and really ponder what's the next step. And I did a lot of that. And I have encouraged my little brother on deployment right now to do the same thing, because that time that you have to yourself, whether you're in the field, whether you're overseas, or whether you're just, doing some downtime while on duty, it's a real good time to really start thinking about what the next step in life might be. And that's essentially what got me to where I'm at now. Is I knew that I needed to come back to the community. I knew I needed to be able to reconnect, and that's how I found myself helping out vets after everything I decided to do when I got out of the Corps.
Wow, man. I would say that, transitioning is rough. And I speak to a lot of Marines and sailors, Army veterans across the board, across the branches. And the one thing that it's all pretty common with all of them is planning, and identity and / purpose. And a lot of the time, suicide unfortunately happens out of uniform, and then there's a rare occasion where it's in uniform. However, the majority of the time for service members, out of uniform, because we lost our identity, or we had an identity in something that wasn't, going to stay with us the entire time, or a purpose. We lost purpose after, the uniform was, the boots were hung up. Gentlemen, starting with Mark and then Miguel, how does QRF reaches out and touch that?
Well, yeah, man, I think to just start is the best way is to explain the actual application, right? So, and understanding what it is will kind of tailor into really how the reach looks, and then how we're getting it across. So the application itself, right, is downloadable on, your iPhone, your Android, whatever system you have. You put it on there, and it gives you a simple service of, if you're in distress, right, you're in a crisis moment, you're in one of those things where you're in your fight or flight responses, you can hit the button, and it will put you directly in contact with a healthcare provider that is licensed within your state, that comes up with, through your cell phone. It'll geo-track it. It'll show you exactly which one, and that keeps us out of the red tape issues, right? So once you get on that phone with a healthcare provider, you then can sit there and try to talk through some of the issues, right? Very similar to a lot of the other phone call areas and different things, whether they're using 988, whether using, there's a ton of them out there. But the issue is that they're so overloaded, you're on hold. You know what I mean? I know we pulled the stats. This was back from May, but they dropped over 58,000 phone calls because they just didn't have a provider to get on the line with them.
Wow.
So we're eliminating that because we're targeting a niche market, right? It's veterans, active duty service members. Obviously that includes, National Guard reserves, however they want to, tie that in, but we're just including that in kind of the active duty side. And then, first responders as well, because at the end of the day, PTSD is PTSD. You talked about dudes dying on the highway or the interstate the other day, right? Like, you get into a bad car accident, you're walking away with PTSD from that too. You don't want to drive like that anymore. You don't want to be any there. It's just changing the course of how you live your life. So with us targeting that niche market, right, it gives us a smaller demographic. It's still massive, right? It's still like 41 million people. All right, like don't think it's super tiny, but you know what I mean. We're looking at it at a much smaller scale compared to the 300 million within the United States. So with that, once you're on the line with the provider, all right, the provider essentially has two options. All right, if they are capable of de-escalating the situation, like you call in and you guys are able to talk through it, they're going to be like, okay, cool. I'm going to put you on this timer, which is going to show up on your app and on their computer screen. And we're going to put you on for 2 hours or 8 hours or whatever the metric meets that they're able to de-escalate the situation from. And with that, then you have to call back to that provider and talk to them again within that time frame, right? Which is really kind of our niche with that app, because there is follow through with it, right? Now, if they can't de-escalate that situation, or you don't call back within that time period, all right, then they're going to send out a responder team, okay? That, it's linked to your phone. That responder team is going to get in touch with you on your phone and try to call you and do those different things, right? And it's going to be a dude like you or I showing up to come meet you, right? And it's volunteers that have gone through the training, you know what I mean, that have gone through that to help, with the de-escalation training and everything else. And it's going to be another brother or sister that's showing up to be like, hey, man, like, what's going on? Like, I know you're in a bad way. Like, look, dude, I was just there a couple months ago. You know what I mean? Like, we're no different, whether, you're a Marine or, I was in the Army or whatever we did, right? Like, cool, what time are you there? I was there this time. You know what I mean? Like, It's all the same thing. And we're able to actually de-escalate that situation and then help get you to a higher echelon of care. And then building out partners for aftercare programs as well. So that way, if we need to circumvent because there are too long of wait times, whether it's the civilian side, whether it's the VA side, whether it's active side, you know what I mean? Like, we can do that. But the major benefit is with our responder program is we don't have to have police involvement, right? We're sending a brother or sister out there to go do that. Now, if you prefer to have an ambulance and police involvement, you can choose to do that on the application. But for me, right, and this was really what drew me into it, was that I've got 3 friends right now that are in prison for assaulting a peace officer because they were in that fight or flight response. They weren't doing good. They were having suicidal ideations. They called for help, and they showed up. And I'm not blaming the police officers, right? I'm not, because they have protocols. They have different things in place that they have to follow. I get that. You know what I mean? They do, and that's to keep them safe. But the flip side of that is they also haven't received enough training to truly de-escalate and deal with that, or they're just of a different mindset that it's different. You know what I mean? When I roll up with, my long shaggy hair and beard now and a bunch of white trash tattoos, you're like, oh yeah, I know who you are, right? Like there's a difference there, and it's in the way that we talk, the way that we speak, the way we handle things that will immediately de-escalate that situation because somebody's there who's got your back and isn't going to let you fail.
Wow.
Right? And that's what we do as senior leaders. And we get out there and we go do those different things. And that's truly what drew me into it, because 1, I want to stop losing my friends. And 2, right, I want to make sure that we're truly protecting our community. You know what I mean? And that's what this app is providing and offering. And that's just the baseline of it, right? Like, Miguel, do you have anything else to kind of add or draw into that?
I'd say the one core thing that really makes and sets us apart is bringing it back to almost the power of the small unit. We appreciate the small unit, whether that's the fire team, the squad, to make up the platoon. The means of being able to do this all over the country to support the application is essentially the backbone of ensuring that, technologically and professionally for the clinicians that we are connected with, we're able to bring it back to that small unit in order to ensure that, a veteran that finds themselves in crisis doesn't necessarily have to worry about, hey, everybody's going to find out about this. Instead, they find solace, they find peace, and they find what they need by being able just to, let this small unit assist them specifically in the area that they're in. And it personalizes it, because ultimately it's just not some stranger, on the other end of a suicide hotline. It's not one of those things where they necessarily have to feel like their vulnerability is going to be taken advantage of. Instead, they find strength and power in that small unit of support.
Wow, that's powerful, Mark and Miguel, man. That's crazy. Mark, you touched about relatability there at the very end. And we know how we talk. We know how we look. We know how we act. We know the lingo, the slang for the majority of, generally speaking. And then you talk about, the small unit level leadership type of thing, Miguel. And that's those two things are powerful, right? Because not many people know how we are, or how we act, or how our jokes are, just our slang in general. And to be relatable in that first line supervisor, so to speak, when it comes to the app and being, what's the word I'm looking for? being able to offer that service to the service member, that's wild. That's crazy. You gave me you both gave me the chicken skin, or what is that called? Goosebumps in general. I'm getting chicken skin all over just thinking about the opportunity here, the advantage that you guys have right now, moving into the space of an app and the network and all that good stuff. It's crazy to think that you're going to offer this service and it's going to be amazing. And that's just my opinion, right? How do service members, past or present, currently active duty or if not reservist or whatever the case may be, how do I, if I wanted to get involved, which I do plan on, I know that I seen a video earlier of, I don't know, the gentleman with the beard, I forget his name. He talked about going down on the website and signing up to be a responder or a volunteer. How do people get involved, and what criteria do we got to meet? What prerequisites do we have to have if we want to volunteer for this app?
Yep. So I'll kind of talk into that a little bit more at depth, though, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just because our biggest point right now is recruiting for responders and behavioral health providers, right, and clinicians. So, and that kind of rolls into how we're rolling out nationally, right? So if anybody that is a responder or wants to become a responder, right, or a provider, to donate some time or services and different things there, you go right onto our website. It's www.qrfup.org, all right, and you scroll down just, I think about halfway down the page. There are links there that you can go in and fill that out and sign in. So the gentleman you're talking about is Adam. He's a good friend of mine, and he is our recruiting specialist, right? And he is, just grinding every day. He actually just started those videos that you were talking about. He's doing it every day for 90 days because we have to recruit 15,000 responders, right, across the entire country. And, right, so it is a lot. But really, if you think about it, it's not that much. Not when there are 19.2 million vets, right? And tell me right now, just in the group that we have right here, that you wouldn't go help somebody if you knew they needed help.
Yeah, facts.
We would, right? Because we would, and that's the benefit of the app too, right? Like you can have the app for you personally and still be a responder. Because you never know when that worst day is going to come, when you hit that point, to where you're just like, dude, like I'm the one that's destroying all this because my inability to regulate myself, you know what I mean? Like I can't put this mask on anymore and pretend like I belong in society. And I'm done. And the only way that I see is to remove myself from that equation. Right. And that's where I was a while ago. And that's real, man. Like that's where it's at. So, just because, you have a bad day too, doesn't mean you can't go help other people, because that's what this is for. And exactly what your podcast embodies as well too is, service members helping service members and vets helping vets, man. Like you guys can jump in on this and do it. So there is a course that you have to go through. When you actually click in, it will walk you through all of the suicide prevention training and everything that you need to get spun up on it in the responder side, right? So for responders, we have a goal that we need to get 100 responders per state, all right, for the soft launch in November. All right, so, and we're building out right now, each state is going to have, a state leader that is going to be over it, and they're going to help us recruit and build that up. Right. So in order for it to be considered, a soft launch, we need 100 responders and we need 7 behavioral health providers. So our BH providers, we're also reaching out to colleges that are doing their doctoral programs. We're reaching out to all these different things that we can give you guys hours at scale to build their programs up and to do those different things and work through that. And then anybody else too that is just, a mental health provider can come in as long as they're licensed within that state. They can work and operate in that state and then donate their time. And and it's not like you go sit down at this desk and you sit here and wait, man. Like no, it's like, hey, there's gonna be a call, it's gonna come in over your phone and you answer, right? And then you can run it through the system right there off your phone because it's all structured through the application.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're looking at. But in order to make our full hard launch, by May of, next year, we need 500 responders and 25 behavioral health providers minimum per state. And that facilitates us being hard launched and 100% operational and getting out there and doing those different things.
That's crazy.
So, please. And this is really where it comes out to, doing this outreach and doing the, I don't like to call it a marketing campaign, right? But at the end of the day, we need to market it because we need it to be pushed out so people gain awareness of it, and that it can be as simple as this, that it's you download an app and you help your friends.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. So, but that's kind of what that looks like.
Yeah. I gotta say before Miguel has, touches on this point too as well. If we're with a statement, if we're not our brother's keeper, then who are we? Right. And if we're not about it, then, what are we about in terms of wearing the uniform and then taking the uniform off? If that's not who we are, then we definitely should reconsider about being in and getting out and your purpose in life. It's a selfless, thankless thing that we do. And man, that's powerful. That's powerful, Mark. Holy mackerel. Miguel, I don't know if you want to add to what he was talking about in terms of the launch and responders and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that to build upon what Mark says is if it's something that you feel is going to take up a lot of your time, it really is not. This is something that when we call out to find ourselves volunteers in the scope and scheme of being able to be a responder, it's just knowing that you're there. So when this is to everybody who's interested, when you think about this commitment, understand that, it's a commitment that you make that's a very serious commitment, but this is not a full-time job. This is not something that you have to worry about getting in the way of your life. And if anything, this is something that you can now add to your war chest as a resource, as a benefit, and as a service for yourself and for the community. And that's what it's all about.
My goodness. I'm excited. I don't know what, it's been 30 minutes already, right? And I'm still got the goosebumps. I don't know about you gentlemen, but I'm super excited, super uber excited about what you guys got to offer. I got to ask though, QRF-Up, how did you touched on it, Miguel, QRF-Up, was it the name kind of collectively chosen upon or as a group, or was it kind of like, hey, I chose this name because it's the bomb name. It just makes sense. It's relatable across all services.
I think it's a culmination of both. With our experiences overseas, when you take a look at our logo, you're going to see some palm trees there. And, Ram, he was out there in Ramadi, I was out in Fallujah. And we have these things that we remember about the places that we were, but more specifically in Ramadi, those palm trees were symbolic for the means of being able to show somebody where they were at in the city. So taking those experiences overseas, and again, knowing the power of what a QRF will do for you, that quick reaction force will save your butt. It really helps reinforce the point of what this application is going to do for you in the civilian world. And essentially, it's keeping it within our lingo. It keeps it within our culture, and it keeps it relatable to anybody. Even if you weren't in combat arms, you can appreciate knowing what being and what responsibility goes with that quick reaction force.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that we just want to reinforce at the end of the day. We have to be that for one another.
Yeah, and I got to add, man, the QRF-Up, the reaction force, and then you have, the guardian angel type of responder right there, and then I got your back kind of thing. I'm like, man, this is wild. It's powerful. If you're listening, tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, QRF-Up with Mark and Miguel. I appreciate your time doing bigger and better things out there in the civilian sector, and QRF-Up is a big deal, at least for me. When you guys asked me to. When we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to my family because we have, again, just like you, Mark, you personally deal with suicide. I'm sure Miguel, the same thing. I'm sure, and then myself on active duty with active duty service members, it's the same thing. It's crazy to think that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I gotta touch QRF-Up. If you're not tune in, please, ladies and gentlemen. It's a good app. It's a good nonprofit. It's going to help overall in the grand scheme of things. And I do appreciate what you guys are doing. Mark, we'll hit with you first, and then Miguel Miguel first, because I know your time's precious. You got to get going here in a second. Miguel, one last save round for you in terms of the listeners. Whatever you got, a tool for the toolbox in terms of suicide. I know the app is going to provide a lot of outlet for service members. But for you personally, to be relatable to the listeners, Miguel, hit a tool for the toolbox, good gouge in terms of mental health and suicide prevention currently right now.
I'd say, to be able to be in tune with everybody, I think the one thing I want to say is and it doesn't matter what generation that you were in, we've all gone through it, we've all walked through it, but we've all found a way to make it out. And I think the biggest resource that we have is one another. This community is a community that has found that out the hard way, whether that was overseas, dragging our in the dirt, in combat, to just training up, or just trying to, have an honorable discharge after, maybe some tough times in the service, because there's a lot of invisible battlefields a lot of us actually, get some experience in while we have that uniform on. And I just want to be able to reinforce and say that even when you take it off, it's still hard. Life is hard. But if we together find power in each other and really reinforce our community, we take back that stigma. We take back those negative areas that people think that they need to go, and we are in control of our destinies. As veterans, we are the most powerful, patriotic, and loyal force within this country, and we've got to be that to one another. If we are, this type of tool here will only complement what we can do.
Amen. That's deep, Miguel. I know that if you sneak off here, I know that you got to go. I got it. Mark, one last save round. A good tool for the toolbox. Good gouge for the service members listening, past or present. Give them something that they can relate to in terms of me and Mark, or you and Mark, or whatever the case may be. If they're dealing with mental health now, or those SIs, those suicide ideations. Touch that piece real quick, Mark.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I've talked about on a couple of different levels, and what, I found for me that I struggled with the most is, once you live outside of like societal normalcy, right, and you live within third world countries, and you go and do those different things, it's not what the normal is here in the United States, right? And, like I got 7 years over there, and for me, that's, it's something that it's a part of me now, and I've allowed that darkness to come in because we needed it there. All right. But there is a way to actually close the door on that. Only invite it back in when it's truly needed. All right. And I'll tell you what, it's not an easy journey. I've been going down my mental health, path for the last year and a half. And it's something that you have to actually actively work on. If you just continue to, box it away and keep it, set aside, eventually you're going to have so many boxes that are going to fall on top of you. Yeah. All right. So physically actually take the time and start unboxing that and start undoing that. And we get it. We talk so much about it too, of just like, hey, like, that's not how we were raised. We don't raise to sit there and talk about our feelings and deal with that stuff. Like we're men, we put it away. You know what I mean? And that masculinity aspect. But honestly, if you really look at it, that's not masculinity, man. It's stupidity.
Yeah.
All right. Like at the end of the day, we are human. And the fact that you can admit and realize and recognize that you're having issues with things, and that you're having problems, like maybe before, you're stuck in your shower having a panic attack. You know what I mean? Like I was. So, like, take that time and start unboxing those things and doing it in a safe environment, right? And don't think that is a weakness within you as a man or a woman, right? But, like, it's not. Yeah. It's not. And anybody that tells you it is they're full of shit.
Yeah.
So, sorry, too many cussing podcast.
Oh, but, no, man. This is your show. I'm just here. I'm just learning.
All right. Yep. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay to do that. And when you live outside of those social norms for so long, and you come back to try to fit back into society, because we all know how that is. You come back from a deployment. Every deployment's different. You know what I mean? You always come back a little bit different, right? you didn't lose a piece of you there. You took a piece of that with you. All right. And we have to understand that. And if you continue to put that mask on every day and just pretend like you fit back into society and you're faking your emotions and you're faking those different things, because we lose them. We lose our empathy. We lose our, ability to physically feel emotions against things, right? Like when we're having to fake our smiles, when we're having to fake our laughs, when we're having to do those different things in public, because I don't feel it. And now I'm over here just like a drone, right?
Yeah.
That's okay to recognize that that's where you're at. And that means that you got to start unpacking some of that baggage, because the more you keep throwing in it and the more you keep packing away and putting away, it's only going to get heavier and it's eventually just going to take you down. So take that mask off and, you know what I mean? Like maybe do it slow. Don't show the world all of our crazy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but take that mask off and accept the fact that, you know what? I don't fit in every social circle here anymore. That's okay. I do fit in these social circles, and this is what I want to do with my life. Whether you're still active, whether you're in your transition process, or you're out and you're just stuck in that zone where you're not figuring it out, man. So like that's the best thing I can say, man, is take time to take that mask off and start unpacking some of your bags. You know what I mean? And doing that and working through it will only make you better for the future, I assure you.
Wow. Those Miguel, Mark, I don't know if Miguel's still in here or not, but Mark, that's deep, man. We, as service members, I think as service members across the board, we go do things, we go do the Lord's work, right? We do all those great things and do the things. And then while we're in the things, we figure out we don't have time to cope because we're mission oriented, task oriented. And while we're in there, it's not like you can just sit there and bottle up in the corner. No, because rounds are coming down range. You have a mission set and we can't stop. And that's how we become numb. I touched Mark on your numbness. A lot of us are numb because that's our first reaction is to survive. And unfortunately, that's not the right approach to certain situations. And I agree with you, Mark. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that this wasn't already established in terms of an application and readily available and readily accessible to services across the board, veterans across the board. You're going to do great things. And I am glad to volunteer and be a part of it and spread awareness and do all those things that help QRF up. And Mark, I appreciate your time. I know Miguel had to step up, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast and spreading the awareness about the application. I mean, there's no way that nobody joins and you don't get enough responders. You can mark me down. I'll do the prerequisites. I promise, Mark. I'm in there long term, so I do appreciate the time. Is there anything else, Mark? I mean, this is great. We can go on for hours, to be honest, but I know you got things.
Dude, I know it ends up turning into a 2-hour podcast. I've done a couple of these now. No, man, honestly, I appreciate you getting on here with us and doing that and helping us share and spread the word, right? Because that's the biggest power that we have is connectivity, and it's connectivity to our community and getting that word out there that, hey, man, we're here. So, honestly, and from the whole QRF group and the team, right, like I appreciate you getting with us and helping us share that. And then to any of the listeners or anything out there, right, like we can get you any of the contact info to any of us that y'all need if you want to set up. We're still looking for some corporate sponsors. We're looking for some other things like that. If you're interested in helping me put on range day events, so my company, Grey Group Tactical, we're putting on a couple range days here coming up. If you guys want to come out to them, we'll have 5 ranges across the United States. I'm not doing California. Y'all are a little too far from me, but we'll be out west. We've also got a gala and a golf outing coming up throughout the year. And we're just trying to get out there. And hopefully once we get all these state teams built up, we'll have an event going on in each state at least once a year to just bring the community together, and share and show that. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing your application.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for your time, Mark and Miguel. One last question for you. Where can they reach you at? Where are the social media handles, things of that nature? If they have follow on questions for you and they want to look you up and all those good things.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find the QRF-Up website is www.qrfup.org, or you can go out to social media is at qrfup.org. And then if you need to look me up specific, you can look me up at Grey Group Tactical 6.mark, M-A-R-K. So that's when I respond on. So if you guys want to reach out to us or do any of that different stuff, by all means, hop in. We do have merch that is now up that we just got sent up on the website as well. So if you're looking to just support it and rep some merch and different things like that, I think I got about 27 options in there that people can start doing, and we're just going to keep pumping more into that too, just to help up build the brand and the awareness. So, and all that goes directly to QRF-Up, and they're able to help support and fund what they need.
Awesome. Mark, ladies and gentlemen, Mark and Miguel with QRF-Up. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts and on all social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Mark, thank you very much. Miguel, thank you very much. QRF-Up, ladies and gentlemen, and we out.
Stand by, contact. Ceasefire. Stand by, contact. Ceasefire.
Pit Talk is a podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.